Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Did you get affected by the storms March 8th? Or maybe, some your roof needs to get looked at, or maybe you need construction needs? Check out K&H Construction. They'll take care of you. They're a local company, been in Waxahachie for a long time. Check them out. K&H Construction. Today, my very special guest is Miss Rhiannon Neuharth. How are you doing, ma'am?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
I'm good. So I wanted to have Miss Newharf on because she knows like nutrition and she knows all things MTHFR, and she's going to explain a lot better to me. But first, ma'am, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself to my audience, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Rhiannon Neuharth, and I am a functional nutrition counselor. I'm also a trauma-informed coach. So when I work with people, a lot of traumas kind of come up and come out, whether that be from experiences or from, health-related stuff, because health stuff can be traumatic as well. But I actually started doing what I do because of my kids, and that's how I got to where I am now. So I'm a former science teacher and um, science nerd. So here I am doing the things and helping other people to do what I've done with my family.
So I did listen to another podcast that you were on, and I mean I can attest to the amount that she could break down her profession and the chemicals and stuff. So I'm gonna try not to get into that much because I am not capable. But what? So you said your daughter led you on a journey, and this is something that kind of got me to wanting to have you on as well because I have
Yeah.
a daughter who's on the spectrum, has ADD. I got kids with ADD and so on and so forth. And and I was looking at how MTHFR affects different people. So can you kind of explain MTH? I'm sorry. Can you explain that and we'll go forward with that one?
Yeah, definitely. So MTHFR stands for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, and it's an enzyme that actually is in conjunction with methylation. And methylation is a big part of our processes in our body, and it's about 200 separate processes. So when people that have unexplained health things, um, generally it can be tied back to methylation or MTHFR of some sort. So when it comes to detoxing, methylation, these things are all related. So as you age as a human, you want to definitely be getting your homocysteine levels checked because if those levels are not in the range that we're wanting to be in between 8 and 10, then you likely have some issues with methylation and you need to either focus on that with supplementing or your diet. But you can be over methylating and causing anxiety and exacerbating symptoms, or you can be under methylating and have depression. And it depends on each person. But
So
it is shown to be tied to many different things. Yeah.
what are some of the conditions that you have seen and you have treated? Like what do you run into the most? Would it be like anxiety, ADD, or
Yeah, so I don't like treat or diagnose or do any of that
I'm
stuff. What I do
sorry.
is I
Yeah.
look at, no, you're fine. I'm a functional nutrition counselor. So when I have a client that comes to me, I go off of what they're experiencing. And, labs sometimes can be helpful, but labs can also lie. And so, looking at like, what are your symptoms? Let's kind of figure out what the root cause is of why this could be happening. And we start with a genetics test. And then we are able to then kind of pivot and pinpoint what additional testing we can look at and how we can dive deeper into what's going on. But as far as it goes with like anxiety, ADHD, that's not only tied to our gut, but it's also tied to what we're eating, the levels of dopamine, serotonin, which are all tied to the gut, and how MTHFR comes to play with those things. If you think of a clock, right, and it's got all the little mechanisms in it, and one of those little mechanisms is missing a wheel, it's not going to be the right time, right? It's going to be off
Hmm.
just a little bit. And so for some people, it can be off a little bit or a lot. And a lot of it depends on our diet and what we're eating and how we're nourishing our body.
You are what you eat, right? They say that way. You are what you eat. How does this mutation affect like does it affect women in like pregnancy and does it have
Yes.
effects on that?
Yes, absolutely. Infertility is a huge one. When people you ask, what things do I experience when people come to me? A lot of it is mast cell activation syndrome, histamine issues. We're talking leaky gut, so obviously that is a huge issue with that as well. Brain fog, chronic fatigue, feeling sluggish, not feeling rested after they get sleep. Those are the top like ones, but obviously ADHD is a huge one that I work with as well. So all those things definitely play into each other.
How are the toxins? Because I know we said you are what you eat, but how are the toxins that we're
Yeah,
eating contributing to this from what you've seen?
absolutely. So when I work with a client, I'm going to ask them a few questions. Number one, are you already on a methylated vitamin? Because when people hear MTHFR, they see all this stuff on the internet that you just need to have a methylated vitamin. It's going to fix your ADHD and everything's going to be great. And that's not the case, which is why comprehensive testing is so important. Which is why that's where I start with every client, because you could have MTHFR, a certain variety of it, because there's two different kinds. And you can have another gene that's kind of counteracting that one. So if you're taking methylfolate, it can make you suicidal, it can make you depressed, it can make you anxious because this other gene's kind of counteracting what's going on over there. And so that's why it's really important to look at those things in conjunction and not just go, oh, I have MTHFR. That's the root of all evil, right? Like
Right.
that's the thing that's going to be doing it. But I just tell everybody it's a piece of the puzzle, not the whole puzzle. So we have to
M-
zoom out to zoom back in.
Would you say like because I understand micro deletions, that's something that I've dealt
Mhm.
with my children, and
Yep.
and I know that the certain micro deletions affect different people different ways.
Mhm.
Does that MTHFR work that way?
So when it comes to it, it's a genetic variation. So it's not necessarily
Hmm.
an insertion or deletion, but when I do testing, we're able to tell if other genes have insertions or deletions on them and how it could be impacting them based on where that insertion or deletion is. I used to work in a genetics lab too. I'm well versed in fish. So if you don't know what that is, it's fluorescent in situ hybridization. It's a way that they look for those specific SNPs or insertions or deletions that are missing on the chromosomes.
Now, these tests are these like tests that and I know I'll get to your process when you start with somebody,
Sure.
but like in general, are these tests something that you get on, well, 23andMe is bad example, but I guess
Yeah.
23andMe, because right now I don't recommend it, but is that something that you get like that, or is that some special test that you got to get?
So I want to make sure the audience knows that's listening that there's a difference between ancestry testing and health like type of testing, because when you do ancestry testing, it's for ancestry. They're testing certain genes for ancestry, right? But when you're looking at the health approach of it, it's different. So we're going to be testing different genes and being able to see how those genes are impacting each other. So I don't recommend anything like that because a lot of people have done that as a cheap way, and then they don't know what to do with any of that information, and it's virtually useless.
Have you seen that doctors kind of shy away from this, or are you starting to see the medical field more catching up with this type of stuff?
It really depends on how open they are to learning and exploring these options. When we first moved to Florida, you'd mentioned my daughter earlier. We first moved to Florida. I knew nothing about MTHFR, and that was almost 9 years ago. We got her in with a new pediatrician. I went through all of her stuff because she had an autoimmune condition we discovered by that time. She tested for MTHFR, but she only tested for one of them, and she didn't test for anything else. And so at that time, it was kind of like, okay, what is this? What do we do with it? So I started on the journey, just like every other parent, to figure that out. Um, but she's a natural minded holistic type of pediatrician. Most are not. Most, if you go to your regular holistic doctor or regular doctor, not holistic doctor, they'll either say, I've never heard of it. I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing wrong with you, or give you a prescription for folic acid, which also is not what you need.
Hmm.
So it's not very helpful generally, which is why I do what I do.
You mentioned earlier about people with the vitamin and the method. I don't remember the word of it,
Methylfolate.
but it's yeah, methylfolate.
Hmm.
It's something that in my family definitely has been used. How
Hmm.
important is that? I know that you got to have a comprehensive approach, but how important is like B vitamin and methylfolate, or are there when you bring your plan together, do you kind of put those, hey, try these with this, or is it how does that work?
Yeah, so we're going to look at your genetic report and we're going to look at the variants and we're going to see which ones that you have and how that they could counteract each other. So for example, if you have the A1298C versus the C677T, I would recommend probably a hydrofolinic, folinic, adenosol, something like that. Um, that's going to give you what you're needing without the anxiety, without the frustrations and those things, because you likely have COMT. Now, if your COMT is fast or slow, that's going to also determine what we're going to do based on those things. So we look at those different genes, how you're responding. But first, before we do anything when it comes to the methylfolate, we have your homocysteine levels checked. Because if your homocysteine is between 8 and 10, you don't really need to supplement it. You're good. But if it's too high, too low, that's when we need to look at like how we can balance that out so you can be within range of what we're looking for.
Hold on, what is that, Rhiannon? What you just said right now. What is that?
Homocysteine.
Yeah,
So
homocysteine.
homocysteine can, in layman's terms, it can affect your cardiovascular health and a whole bunch of other things. So it's a very important piece that most practitioners don't generally test, but if they do test, they don't really know how to manage it. And they'll just say, here's the methylfolate, but they don't really know how to balance that line because it's a very small between 8 and 10 range of over methylating and under methylating.
Wow. Um, you work on nutrition, and you had talked
Mhm.
about this. Um, and I've had guests on to talk about gut health. Talk to me how your gut biome is affected, and like some of the things that you start recommending, the people that you're helping start recommending they go into eating. Is it like a whole eating plan, or hey, get this organic or that organic? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So once we get started together, everybody gets that comprehensive testing. While we're waiting for that testing to come back, we are discussing what dietary changes that they can make. So I'm having them do a food journal, seeing if we're finding any patterns with foods that they're eating and having a reaction, whether that be a runny nose, whether it be bloating. We just kind of take a broad approach to that. So for example, I had a client that came to me. She was eating bananas every single morning, but she was like, I'm eating healthy foods, Rhiannon. I don't know why I wake up and I have a headache and I feel like this and I have nausea and I'm so dizzy. Well, I started looking at her food journal. I saw this banana every morning, and I was like, that's curious. I said, take the banana out for a couple days and let's see how you do. She went from an 8 with her dizziness to a 2 within 2 days simply by removing the banana. And that's a histamine issue. So then we can kind of identify those things in the gut and go, okay, well, let's work on healing the gut. Let's see if there's any biofilms. Let's see if we have any bacteria or H. pylori or any of those types of things that we can also expand on because Dow is in the gut. And so we need to look at those types of things too and see how they're all connected. And most practitioners that are traditional, medicine doctors only look at a part of you. They don't look
Yeah.
at all of you as a person. It's like you're a cardiologist, you're a neurosurgeon, you're this, but there's no integration of that. And so that's what I'm able to do is kind of look to see how those parts play together and how that vital piece of gut health plays a factor with overall wellness as well.
There's a lot of conversations in this country as of late about what we're eating, what we're
Hmm.
intaking, what we're doing. Talk about how how you talk about how you have seen that of like these different foods that are out there, GMOs and stuff like that. Is
Yeah.
organic? Is that something that you send them to? Just your experience with it, and maybe how maybe somebody you were helping when they changed up their diet.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had another client came to me, and she had gained a bunch of weight. She was having headaches. She was nauseous. Gosh, she had allergies like crazy. She was on an antidepressant, all these things. And just within the first 6 weeks of modifying her diet and she ended up getting off all of her medications, which I always recommend talking to your doctor to do that, but that was her goal. She got off all of her medications. She was on a blood pressure medication as well. And she ended up losing 55 pounds in the time that we had worked together. And that was strictly from inflammation. And we uncovered that she had some mast cell things going on as well. And so for a lot of people, mast cell, mold, parasites, all these different things, traditional medicine isn't looking at to explore. And so with her, once we got her on a roll, figured out there was some hormones and histamine issues going on, we figured out, calculating like, okay, around this time of the month, we're noticing this. We were able to figure that out for her, and she had a huge results from that.
Talk to me about the difference between because there's the MTHR HFR
Mhm.
I imagine it can affect a man as it
Oh
affects a
yeah,
woman. So talk to
yeah.
me the differences on how you've seen it affects different one. Does it affect them all kind of the same? I don't know.
Yeah, so obviously with infertility being an issue, we'd mentioned that earlier, a lot of people will go on IVF and things like that when really they just need to focus on balancing their body, getting things in check in this regard, making sure their nutrition is well, and seeing how MTHFR comes to play with that. But for men versus women, a lot of the same stuff, brain fog, weight issues, it's not gender specific, so to speak. But women do have disproportionately higher amounts of autoimmune conditions, right? Because the amount of stress that we're under with our hormones, with life, with all the things that we take on as women. And so, therefore, I work mostly with women because women are the ones that are like, okay, I've done all the things, I've tried all the things, I'm fed up, right? Like, I
Right.
can't do this anymore. So, it's all about the same.
Ladies do tend to bear a brunt of that stuff. Now, it, you talked about trauma and how
Mm-hmm.
you dealt with people with trauma. MTHFR, does it mess with like the neurotransmitter? Does it mess with your balance? Is something you're eating? Is it kind of break that down? Because so many people deal with these mental things. So
Yeah.
many people. So from your portion, what you know on MTHFR, how does that get in there?
Yeah, our mental health is absolutely connected to our gut health, and that's studies have been shown. But epigenetics and nutrigenomics is really what I focus on. So you're able to turn on and off those genes, even if you have them. So you can have MTHFR and have zero symptoms, and that's where everybody's like, "Oh my God, I got this gene!" And I'm like, "But do you like need to worry about it, right?" And the studies have shown that they've taken twins with the exact same DNA. One lived a totally healthy lifestyle, one lived a not healthy lifestyle. The one with the healthy lifestyle, no issue. The one with the not healthy lifestyle, issues. So it just goes down to, your environment, the toxins, and toxins are a huge one. You touched on that a little bit ago. Organic. Difference between organic and what is the other one out there? Organic and
You
oh my
had
gosh, I can
mentioned
see the
this on
label.
a peel. Is it peel?
Yes, yeah,
You had
yeah.
mentioned.
Peel is not a great thing. That's been coming out now. But organic and non-GMO are two different things, right? And so
Yeah.
looking for that and identifying that you want both of those things, looking at the clean 15, looking at the dirty dozen, making sure that you are finding ways for you to detox and lower your toxic burden are extremely important because those of us with MTHFR tend to lean towards having fatty liver. And so if somebody
Oh,
says, I have fatty liver, I go, that's curious. You probably have MTHFR. Have you looked into that? And so then that way it's like, okay, well, we need to focus on detoxing, changing our diet, getting rid of these toxins. Because if you're not able to detoxify, nothing's going to work right. Right.
right. Now your MTHFR, it does have an ability to affect how your body deals with like heavy metals and toxins
Yep.
in a lot of food, right?
Yep. Yep.
It,
Absolutely. So eating high processed foods, not great. A lot of us have ADHD that have MTHFR, obviously. And so making sure we're getting a lot of protein because we have ADHD, but also because of MTHFR. So high protein diets for us are very important. But we also have to make sure we're balancing that with good fiber, healthy fats, getting the things that we need in conjunction with that.
when what is the biggest misconception with when and mostly ladies, you say that you've seen a
Mhm.
lot of ladies, what is the biggest misconception they come to you with? What's that biggest myth that you're like, no?
Mostly, I would say it's the methylfolate. And the question, like I said, I always ask is, are you taking it and do you feel anxious or depressed? And most people, most women that come to me are already on an anxiety or depression medication. And so if they're taking methylfolate and they notice, oh, yeah, I have been more anxious lately, actually, since I've started taking that. That's a dead giveaway for me, a red flag that they have a slow COMT, and we need to switch that into a different form. But we also need to check their homocysteine level and see where they're even at. Like, are they over methylating? Are they under methylating? So that is like I'm screaming into the void on social media all the time. Like, it's not for everyone.
Well, you see, that's something that maybe my viewers had no idea, because
Yeah.
that's a popular thing now, the methylfolate,
Hmm.
and with
Yep.
everything, it's a very popular thing, and there could be different things that affect. So, just kind of reiterate. Somebody says, "Hey, I want to see what Miss Neuharth, how Miss Neuharth could help me." that
Mhm.
process, you get them the screening, and is that really costly, or how, what can they expect to kind of run
Yeah,
into?
that's a great question. So when I first like want to work with anybody, I always do a free 15-minute consult because I want to see energetically if we're a good match because hey, I'm not for everybody. And everybody's not for me, right? Like
I
I want
don't
to be able to
believe
help
that.
people. Never. But I want to work with people that want to work with me because, I have people that have come to me and like they've paid me and I've never heard from them again. I'm like, thank you for your donation to my business. That's not why I'm in business. I would love to be able to help you with the things that you are dealing with. That's why I'm here. So I want to make sure it's a good energetic match. From there, then we can go on, okay, what are some options for you based on what you're trying to achieve? And how can these things work together? So the genetic test I do with everybody. They can do that as a standalone item and go, hey, Rhiannon, I don't ever want to talk to you again. Thanks for the information. Have a nice day. Or we can roll into a 90-minute power session after that. Or we can roll into a one-on-one coaching program to customize that and really hone in on that and change everything that's going on in the next 90 days. But that test includes 1 hour with me, a mini course, and the test itself, which gets directly shipped to you. It's a simple cheek swab. You ship it back. There's no extra charge for the shipping, and it's $525 for that. For all of those things together, I do offer like Klarna Affirm Afterpay, and it's $550. So then that way there's flexible payment options and everybody can still get what they need to that fit within their budget. It's just a little bit more because it costs me to use the program.
Wow, even could get some afterpay. That stuff helps. That stuff helps when you
Yeah.
got to do a thing like that. You're getting
Yeah.
ready to roll something out, and I wanted you to get a chance to mention that, and maybe how people can find more about you, because you're a published
Yeah.
author as well. I mean, you're
Yep.
doing work all over the place. So can you tell my audience more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually doing a 5-day kitchen refresh challenge because as an ADHDer, if we go shopping, our food goes in the fridge and then it goes in the drawer and it dies, right? Like the fridge is where things go to die. And so unless we are prepared for the food cycle to continue, then we're never going to have the food cycle. And the food cycle is always going to be death. And you're just going to have rotten food in your fridge all the time, wasting money, feeling frustrated. And that's the ADHD tax a lot of people talk about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm doing a 5-day free kitchen reset challenge with that right now. You can text in. It's going to give you some prompts each day. It's going to give you break down each task. Say, set a timer for 2 minutes and go do this. And then text this word back when you're done. And then after that challenge is over, I actually have this is what I'm launching. It's called Brain Food, Optimizing Focus and Energy for ADHD. And that's just a little mini course. It's going to be $27. So nothing crazy. It's about half hour, 45 minutes. And you're getting some handouts with that too. And you will as well with the free challenge. But it's really going to walk you through how your food and your genes come to play with your ADHD and what things to know. So, a lot of what we talked about on this, but certain foods to avoid, certain foods to eat, those types of things in order to support the ADHD brain.
Wow. Yeah. There's so much there. So much there. Some people have no idea just how much all this stuff affects them and what they're
Yeah.
putting in their mouth. I mean, I'm a fat boy and I like to eat too much, and it is affecting me. I have all the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that a lot of people have that are running around the US that a lot
Yeah.
of Europeans don't have, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
eating the same food. So I mean, it's kind of one of those deals. But I really do, on my show, my guest always gets the last word. So if you want to tell somebody about it real quick or anything, I'll go ahead. I'll shut up.
Well, I just want to say if you're even remotely curious about what MTHFR is, definitely go check out my website. As I said, I'm not for everybody. I drop the F bomb a lot. So if that offends you, then I'm probably not the great person to work with for you, but you have to have a little bit of a sense of humor with the acronym of this stuff. Okay,
Okay.
that's just me. But go check it out. I've got quizzes. I've got all sorts of free things on my website, and you can just go learn more about what this is and see if this is the next step in your ADHD journey of learning about how this is affecting you and how it can support you and your family, just having that knowledge and information.
I just realized what you were saying with that. The MTH. Oh, okay. Well, can you stick around real quick after the show?
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.